All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're cracking the code, folks. Your body's secret language.
Oh, this is going to be good.
It is. You guys send in tons of notes and transcripts from this bio-neuroemotion conference, and you're like, help! What does it all mean?
Right, it can be overwhelming.
Totally. So think of this deep dive as your, bio-neuroemotion for dummies. We're going to help you understand all those signals your body's sending you.
Yeah, bio-neuroemotion is really all about understanding the connection, this deep connection between, well, everything. Your body, mind, and emotions.
Okay, so it's like not just how our bodies react, but what those reactions say about us. Kind of deep, right?
Totally. Like, imagine an iceberg. You only see the tip, right?
Right, just a little bit above the water.
Exactly. That's like our conscious mind. But underneath, there's this massive part, like 95% hidden below the surface. That's our subconscious.
Whoa, so most of what's going on is totally under the radar.
And bio-neuroemotion is saying that this hidden part of us, it's talking to us all the time, sending messages through our bodies.
So our bodies are like messengers, trying to tell us something's up. What kind of messages are we talking about? Give me an example.
Well, think about it, right? Sometimes your body might be trying to tell you that something's off emotionally. Like, they were talking about this at the conference, how migraines, they often show up in people who, struggle with being assertive, people who overthink things.
Huh, interesting.
And teeth grinding, that can be a sign that you're holding back emotions, like you have trouble expressing your needs.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that tension headache I get, maybe it's not just stress. Maybe it's my body saying, hey, speak up.
Exactly. That's the whole point, is encouraging us to actually listen to our bodies, to those little whispers, and ask, what are you trying to tell me?
Okay, that's kind of cool. But how do we even start to understand these messages? Where do we even begin with all this?
Well, at the conference, they talked about personality types and how different types deal with their emotions. There are these 4 main types, A, B, C, and D.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and guess what? Types A, C, and D, they often have trouble expressing their emotions. They bottle things up, block those feelings, and guess what? That can actually lead to physical symptoms.
Seriously. So, if I'm the type who never gets angry or always puts on a brave face, that could be bad for me.
It's not about never feeling those emotions. It's about finding healthy ways to process and express them, Otherwise, they might come out in other ways, like physical symptoms.
Okay, I'm definitely rethinking how I deal with stress now. So, besides knowing our personality type, how else can we understand, the language of our bodies?
Well, the conference brought up this cool idea from, Albert Ellis, and his rational emotive behavior therapy. It's this simple equation, A plus B equals C.
A plus B equals C. Okay, that sounds simple enough.
It is. A is the activating event, so anything that happens to you. B is your beliefs about that event. And C is the consequences.
The consequences, like how we react.
Exactly. Our emotions, our behavior, all that.
Got it.
So it's not just the event itself. It's our beliefs about it that cause our reactions.
Oh, okay. I'm starting to see where this is going.
Yeah. And they told this great story about this woman who she felt totally overwhelmed by her boss. Like, she couldn't say no to anything. But when she looked deeper, she realized it wasn't her boss. It was her own belief that she couldn't set boundaries.
Whoa, that's a good example. It's not about blaming other people. It's about, taking responsibility for how we see things.
Right. And that's the really powerful thing about bio-neuroemotion. You actually have the power to change your beliefs and change your reactions. But we'll talk about that later.
Okay, before we move on, I gotta ask, how does all this relate to our relationships? Do our beliefs and all that subconscious stuff, does it play a role there too?
Big time. It's actually one of the key areas where bio-neuroemotion can really help you understand things better. Remember that whole iceberg thing we were talking about?
Yeah, the subconscious lurking beneath the surface.
Right. Well, a lot of what's going on down there, it's shaped by our relationships. Especially those early experiences, like with family.
So all those childhood dynamics, those patterns we picked up early on, they can actually affect how we relate to people as adults.
Exactly. It's crazy, right? And the conference, they talked about this thing called projection. It's this idea that, sometimes we project our own unconscious thoughts and feelings onto other people.
Okay, I think I get it, but can you give me an example? How does this projection thing actually work in real life?
Sure. Think about those times when you have a really strong reaction to someone, either positive or negative. That intensity, it might be a sign that you're projecting something onto them. There was even this story at the conference about this woman who, she just hated all men.
Oh, wow.
And it turned out that this extreme reaction, it came from some unresolved family trauma, stuff that had been passed down through generations.
Whoa. So those people who like really push our buttons, those people we have those big reactions to, maybe those reactions are telling us more about ourselves than about them.
Exactly. And it's not about like blaming our families or anything like that. It's about understanding how those early experiences might be like shaping our perceptions now.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say I'm starting to see some of these patterns in myself. What then? How do I actually change them and have better relationships?
Well, first of all, congrats on recognizing the patterns. That's huge. Awareness is like the first step.
Right, got to see it to change it, right?
Totally. And, you know, the conference really emphasized how important relationships are for, well, for everything. They even talked about this big study, the 75-year Harvard study of adult development. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, vaguely. But 75 years, they must have learned a ton.
Oh, they did. And guess what they found? Close, quality relationships are like the most important thing for a long and happy life.
Interesting.
And loneliness, it can actually be really bad for you,
Yeah.
both mentally and physically.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that serious.
It is. They even told this story about a woman who she was struggling with low libido, and it turned out it was connected to her husband's work schedule. He was always working late.
Really? I never would have thought those two things were connected.
Right. But see, those late arrivals, they were triggering some deeper anxieties in her about the stability of their relationship.
I get it. It wasn't just the schedule. It was like tapping into these deeper fears she wasn't even aware of.
Exactly.
So even small issues in our relationships can have these like deeper layers, these hidden patterns playing out.
Exactly. And that's where bioneuroemotion is so helpful. It gives you a framework for understanding those dynamics, you know, those hidden fears and beliefs that are driving your behavior.
Okay, so we've talked about personality, beliefs, projection, and how important relationships are. But how do we actually go from understanding all this to like changing our patterns, to actually making our lives better?
That's the big question.
Right.
Right. And that's where the real work begins. The conference, they talked about a lot of practical techniques for working with these unconscious patterns. One that really stood out to me was family constellations. Have you heard of those?
Yeah, but I don't really know what they are.
So imagine this. You're in a room with a bunch of people, and you choose people to represent like different members of your family, including yourself.
Yeah.
And as these people interact, you start to see all the hidden dynamics of your family system playing out right there in front of you.
Oh, wow. So it's not just talking about your family, it's like experiencing it.
Right. It's pretty powerful. And it can help uncover hidden loyalties, you know, entanglements, even old traumas that are still affecting you.
Okay, that's pretty intense. What about the shadow self? I saw that in my notes too. What's that all about?
Oh, the shadow self? Yeah, that's a fascinating one. And kind of scary for some people. Remember the iceberg? Well, the shadow self is like all those parts of ourselves that we've rejected. You know, those negative traits, dark emotions, the things we don't like about ourselves.
So it's like our dark side. But why would we want to explore that?
Because it's actually full of energy and potential.
Okay.
And when we deny it, it can come out in unhealthy ways, like through projections, addictions, even physical problems.
Oh, so it can actually cause problems if we just ignore it.
Exactly. But when we embrace our shadow, we become more whole. We can accept ourselves more fully.
So it's about integrating those shadow parts into like our whole selves.
Exactly. And that's one of the core ideas in bioneuroemotion.
Yeah.
Moving from this like black and white thinking to a more integrated perspective. It's not about good versus bad. It's about recognizing that we have both light and shadow inside us.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But like, how do we actually do that? How do we work with these shadow parts and bring them into our lives?
It's a process, right? But it starts with like paying attention. Remember those body signals we were talking about?
Yeah.
Those could be like big clues to what's hiding in our shadow.
Oh, interesting. So like anxieties I keep having, or, you know, when I keep messing things up, that could be my shadow trying to get my attention.
Totally. They talked about this at the conference, like journaling, meditation, even just noticing what triggers you.
Yeah.
It's all about tuning in and asking yourself, what's going on here? What am I afraid of? What belief is making me act this way?
So it's like we have to become our own therapists, right?
Yep.
Explore those hidden parts of ourselves.
Exactly. And sometimes it can be helpful to like work with a bioneuromotion practitioner. They can give you tools to, you know, help you explore those shadow parts safely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm doing that, I'm becoming aware of my shadow and all that. How does that actually make my life better? Like, how does all this bioneuromotion stuff really make a difference?
That's where the magic happens. They shared some amazing stories at the conference about people who used bioneural emotion to like totally change their lives, heal relationships, overcome illnesses, even achieve their dreams.
Oh, wow. Can you share one of those stories?
Sure. There was this woman, she had chronic fatigue for years, tried everything, doctors, medications, nothing worked. And through bioneuroemotion, she realized that her fatigue was like a symptom of repressed anger.
Wow. So, like, her body was literally tired from holding on to all that anger.
Yeah. And as she started to express that anger in healthy ways, her energy came back.
That's amazing.
It is. And it's not just about physical health. Bioneuromotion can also help us have better relationships. They told another story about this guy who kept sabotaging his relationships. He'd fall in love, and then, like, a few months in, he'd mess it up.
Oh, I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
So how did bioneuroemotion help him?
Well, when he explored his family history, he realized he had this belief that love was dangerous. Like, his parents had a really bad relationship, so he learned to protect himself by pushing people away.
Ah, so he was repeating that pattern even though it was hurting him.
Yeah. But once he saw that pattern and understood where it came from, he could start making different choices. He started to believe that love could be safe.
Those stories are so inspiring. It really shows that we can, like, change our stories and create a life that we actually want.
That's the whole point. Bioneuromotion gives us the power to take control of our lives, not by ignoring our emotions, but by understanding them and working with them.
So what's the main takeaway you want our listener to get from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing is to remember that your body is on your side. It's always talking to you, trying to help you feel better. All those aches and pains, those thoughts that keep popping up, those patterns you keep repeating, they're not the enemy. They're messages, trying to get your attention.
So it's all about listening to those messages and, like, trusting our own inner wisdom.
Exactly. Bioneuromotion is a journey of self-discovery. It's about exploring the connection between our body, mind, and emotions.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of, like, how to listen to my body. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. And remember, the journey starts with a single step. Keep exploring, keep listening, and trust yourself. You got this.